November 10th, and we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we will begin our meeting with public comment. Please state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Given the good crowd tonight, we would just appreciate it if everyone could keep it within the 3 minutes. So we have a sign-in list, and we will we'll go off that list, and then anyone could also, if you're not on the list, you can just raise your hand and we will call you up. So Charlene is...
Frank Horowitz, are you here for public comment or public hearing?
Public comment.
Okay, then please come up.
Thank you for the opportunity. Frank Horowitz. I'm a full-time resident of Southampton Village, 100 Lee Avenue. I'm up here to ask questions and seek solutions on 2 traffic issues. One, the left-hand turn onto Hill Street, and the overall speeding in Lee Avenue or the estate section, and to better understand the communication going forward on these 2 issues and any next steps. So the 3-week experiment of the no left-hand turn, what were the proper resources allocated to the issue? Meaning you had these signs and then you had police on every one of these 4 blocks. And I really felt sorry for them being there from 3 to 7. Was there a cheaper solution, like some cones that would prevent a left-hand turn, and maybe a police car could go up and down Hill Avenue as opposed to having these people stationed for 4 hours, five days a week? 4 or 5 of the days was rain. So that would be one thing. I'd like to know if you feel the proper resources were allocated. And what were the results and the observations, and how were they shared with the community? I'm a new resident, but I heard nothing. I'd have to stop a police officer if he was there and talk to him to understand anything. What was the conversation between the police and the board to end this experiment? And again, what was the conversation on the rollout of the communication to the community? And if this experiment is over, what's next? I had 3 weeks of bliss without 50 cars parading down Lee Avenue, radios blaring. I mean, if sometimes I would come through Ox Pasture and try and make a right-hand turn onto Lee, and I wouldn't go in the other lane and cut into my driveway. I waited, and sometimes it was 10, 15 minutes. So it's a parking lot from 3 to 7 on weekdays, and very stressful. And why should Southampton Village residents be penalized by traffic leaving the east
You have
end?
30 seconds, sir.
Pardon?
30 seconds left.
Okay, thank you. And then the morning rush hours, 6 a.m., the trade parade, they zoom up and down there. You could cover your whole payroll for the police by having them stay in my driveway with a little zapper. These guys going 40, 45 minutes. So I would assume that none of you live in those streets, because if you did, you would realize how much of a burden it is and how blissful it was not to have it. So I'd love to know what next steps are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Horowitz.
Is there an additional speaker?
Joe McLaughlin? Oh, okay. Jay Deasing?
Good evening. My name is Jay Deasing, and I'm a resident of the village on Old Town Crossing and president of the Southampton Association. I wanted to speak briefly about the Liberty Gardens project. This project is not just adjacent to our village. A small portion is also in our village, and that gives Southampton special rights, but also some obligations. To begin, Southampton Village has the right to get honest and accurate answers to traffic concerns septic and water quality issues, overdevelopment problems, and what, if any, local workforce housing will actually be created. These issues have not been properly vetted in the DEIS. Take traffic as one example, and I quote the DEIS, existing vehicles to be controlled by a stop sign for both right, eastbound, and left, westbound turns coming off of County Road 39. As you all know that road, it's shocking, and yet the DEIS states that construction of this project will not result in any adverse traffic impact at the study intersections. The conclusion is just not logical. And in fact, most of the conclusions in the DEIS are not logical, and it's based on their own data. So over the past 2 weeks, the association has been working with the law firm of Meyer Swazi from Garden City. And this is where the obligations of the village and each of you as our trustees also come in. You must preserve and protect the well-being of Southampton Village and its residents. Unfortunately, the village's longtime planning firm is the consulting firm for this applicant. This is professionally and ethically a severe lapse in process. At a minimum, NPV should have recommended that the village retain its own independent consultant from the very beginning for a review of this project. I ask that you trustees now make such an appointment as soon as possible, and for each of you to fully review this application. Once built, there will be no turning back. Please, please protect our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. For those who are not aware of what Mr. Deasing was talking about, this is regarding a zoning change on County Road 39 in Southampton Town, which many village and town residents have expressed their opinion on. I will be asking the board tonight to hire an engineering and environmental firm to review the DEIS, which I think is the logical step. And I do believe you're correct. Unfortunately, and I did speak to NPV, I didn't think it was appropriate for them to take on this project, given that there also are environmental and planning consultants, because clearly that presents some type of conflict of interest, in my opinion. And so while that's unfortunate, we'll be able to hire a firm to review the DIS, and we'll also be taking steps to reach out to the Suffolk County Water Authority to ensure that any water treatment there is done in accordance to what their plans are, and we believe that those steps will help this process. So thank you for the comment. We're certainly taking note.
Good evening, Board. Joe McLaughlin, Hill Street. I too want to piggyback on what Mr. Deasing had said, and also in regards to the meeting at the town last week. We do have a responsibility. When I was on the board, when I was a trustee, I actually directed Ms. Betts to write a letter to the town regarding this very issue, to piggyback on what former Mayor Irving had written several years before. So, as Jay said, it's up to the five of you to execute this and to make sure the village residents' voices are heard. I do recall a discussion when I was a trustee that there should be a liaison to the town, and unfortunately that was it never went beyond a discussion. But I do believe we have to work together to have our voices heard and make sure that especially the residents around this development, Hillcrest and North Sea Road, are heard, because there's no way that we're going to eventually have one way out of this development. It's going to eventually have to go through the village at some point. So we have to remain vigilant and make sure that we do the right thing by our residents and taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Val Davis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, trustees, Mayor Jesse. Good to see everyone. 3 minutes, I'm here in opposition of changing the Elm Street and Pulaski Avenue parking ordinances that were recently approved. I am a resident of Pulaski Avenue. Fun fact, Ian Duke is a resident of East Quogue. Just wanted to have that out there. There were two separate hearings on Elm and Pulaski Avenue. Ian Duke, nor a rep of his, came and spoke. No message was sent to the village to postpone so he could speak. I think that's important to note. 256 Elm has parking on site, but removed it and turned it into an illegal yard. The handout shows that by zoning ordinance, he is required to have parking in the back. 1 parking space for every 3 seats in the restaurant, 2 parking spaces for each apartment. I would like the village to have whoever is appropriate to look into who handles these zoning violations and have them corrected, please, or action taken. The Alcohol Authority in Southampton ordinances prohibit Southampton Social from using the outdoor space. Therefore, it's perfect for a parking area. No enforcement by the village. That's a big problem. Also, Southampton Social has rampant public urination. Jay and I witnessed it one evening during a 40-minute period where 3 people walked out in front of Southampton Social Club security and urinated in front of us. Not directly, but in the area. And I think if that happened here in the village, where someone walked out of St. Ambrose or 75 Main, just walked a little ways down and urinated, I think that would be a huge, huge issue for the village, and action would be taken. So why is it one situation here in the village center and the business district in our area where it's just allowed to happen? Just, putting it out there as a thought. To say that changing the parking rules that were done would be dangerous to citizens, I think that's completely out of order. Really, the dangerous people are the drunk drivers, the trash that Southampton Social Club does not pick up from their own patrons, the loud patrons looking for their cars, the loud music coming from the club.
30 seconds, Mr. Davis.
Thank you. The yelling and screaming. I just want to say I hope that y'all consider maintaining the current parking ordinances as they are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Jack Zacharias.
Hi, good evening. Jack Zacharias, 160 Somerset Avenue. I simply wanted to take the opportunity to thank the mayor and the board of trustees for having the courage and the foresight to conduct a traffic study. I think your action is critically important to addressing some of the major, not only safety, not only convenience issues of people trying to get from point A to point B, but also the safety issues we have in the village that are associated with the volumes of traffic, and others have mentioned the speed at which some of those folks tend to travel and the carelessness with how some of them drive. So many thanks to you for having, again, the courage and the foresight to undertake it, because no action would have, to not undertake the study would have not been the right thing to do. To undertake the study demonstrates the impetus to actually take some action following on from it. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Carol Zacharias.
He said it.
Okay. Francis Genovese.
Can I ask you if you have had time to look at the packet of information that I gave you?
We have,
You
yes.
do.
Thank you, Francis.
So the last page of that packet of information is the last notification from the village to the town of Southampton regarding Liberty Gardens, and it was done by Mayor Irving, who said he was putting the town on notice that there could be no zone change without the village's approval, that unfortunately no notice, no information was given to the village other than what was in the paper. He expressed extreme disappointment at the lack of communication, and he said the village was on record as opposing development on County Road 39. There was no benefit to this. It did not provide local workforce housing. That about covered it, and then it went dead. So now here we are. If we flash forward, does everybody have an understanding of where we are in this process? The DEIS has been approved. You can't go back and now, you can't go back and critique it now. It's been approved. But you have a chance before the final environmental study is approved, which I expect to come down around Christmas time, true to form. And that is when the village can have input. And that is the last time, and I think it's been clearly established that the village does owe us that. Certain things that I would like to make abundantly clear here tonight, and that is that this is not local housing, this is not workforce housing. The concern for independent living is affiliated with the Department of Mental Health. This is a project that has very specific rules for who can come here. Persons with psychiatric disability is the thing that I focus on, in addition to the veterans who have psychiatric disabilities. My point is, as I've made before the town and elsewhere, if the village and the town wanted to consider a facility for homeless veterans, for people with mental disabilities, for the whole list of things that is stated here by the Department of Mental Health and is repeated verbatim by the developer in their mission statement, minus the psychiatric disabilities, then you should have come before the public. If you are considering this, you have to come before the public. At this point, the remedy could be that you ask them for a supplemental DEIS before the FEIS comes out. And this is what the public has had to deal with for a very long time, that we've done the work of the planners, of the village, oversight, research, printing, running around, letters in the paper. So we're asking now for your participation in this very egregious thing. This is not just a zoning change. This is a density proposal that's unsustainable. 60 units on 5 acres with the potential for another 60 units on the front lot. The fact that the front lot has not been discussed in this DEIS makes it a useless DEIS. It's got to go back to the drawing board. You have the potential of 100.
Ms. Janvishin, time is up.
Okay. If you think 4 years of work and 200-page DEIS can be broken down in terms of issues in 3 minutes, then you're sorely mistaken.
Thank you, Francis. I would add, however, that the village is in close communication with the town. We've had a lot of dialogue, and thanks to some of our communication and work from this board, the planning department did issue a positive declaration, which was a good step in order to actually have that public hearing. Otherwise, it would have been a negative declaration, and it would have been essentially rubber stamped. So at least there was the positive declaration, but there's also important steps that we'll be taking to make sure that all the facts are done correctly.
Positive declaration with that density, and it's a 4-part application, not just the density. It's site plan approval. It's.
Need you to go to the mic.
We'll keep on moving on, Sage. I just wanted to let the public know about that as well.
R.H. Morrison?
Hi, my name is Renee Morrison. I live in the town of Southampton. Good evening, Mayor and Board. I'm going to pick up where Francis left off. One of the most important things about this project is, as Francis mentioned, there's no study about the second lot. Now, it is called segmenting, and it is illegal. If they're not mentioning this second lot, and they have intentions of putting another 60 units on this lot, it is illegal. And it had to be mentioned in the DEIS and fall under the auspices of all the environmental factors, but they're leaving it out. And again, that's illegal. Getting back to the traffic, it was mentioned in one of the discussions that there is a community of 90 to 100 homes. I live in that community. We have been trying to get an access road for 6 years. We've had accidents and fatalities on our corner. And what do we have? One entrance in and one exit out onto County Road 39. So you can learn by our example. And we have had countless of accidents and deaths. And this is not even in as congested an area as this one entrance and exit is proposed opposite Burger King, opposite an office building that Farrell is building, and a very, very complicated system referred to by many people, myself included, as the suicide lane, trying to maneuver in and out for turns. And all of this, again, is mentioned in the traffic study. And one of the points that's mentioned is there has been 235 accidents, of which 15 took place in front of the church. The church was only open 2 days a week. It was closed for COVID. And we're now going to present, he says 60, Ralph Fasano, the developer, which could illegally turn into 120 units, which means this is going to be 24/7 with emergency vehicles, police, people entering and exiting, services for this facility. This is not workforce housing. This is a facility, as Francis mentioned, and this is not for our community, be it the village or the town. Yes, we do need workforce housing for our own community. This is not what our community, the village and town of Southampton, needs and wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you very much.
That's it for the list.
Okay, that is it for our list. As our village administrator, Charlene said, we have some people on Zoom, Sage?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Bringing them in now.
Good evening. Can you hear us? You are live on Zoom for public comment.
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm Kristen Duca. We've been homeowners at 211 Somerset Avenue in Southampton Village since 2015. We're obviously concerned about the safety of the neighborhood and have noticed the increased traffic during the after-work hours of 5 and 7, Monday through Friday. However, along with other neighbors on both Pleasant and Somerset, we were shocked to discover the blockade at the McGee-Somerset corner and are opposed to this measure. Moreover, we read through previous meeting minutes and note we were never alerted to this road closure taking place, nor were many other neighbors. We're opposed to closing down that street with Hill Street as the only entrance and exit. We believe there must be other reasonable solutions that should be explored. We were under the impression that official studies would be conducted and ultimate solutions would be agreed upon by the tax-paying homeowners in the neighborhood. We believe another stop sign is a reasonable solution to the problem, or enforcing a reduced speed limit on the impacted roads, but a permanent road closure is not a prudent solution. Another solution could be a sign that says no right turn or left turn off McGee to Somerset Avenue, depending on the directions people are coming from, except for residents during 5 and 7 on weekdays. Furthermore, perhaps there could be a no right turn sign onto Hill Street during 5 to 7 on weekdays. It's disheartening for us to find out that we can no longer access McGee Street and have to battle the traffic on Hill Street every time we have to go into Southampton Village. We bought our home as they had multiple access points so we could easily get around Southampton Village. Now, in order to exit our home and venture out, we have to make a left turn onto Hill Street in the thick traffic lines. This is absolutely dangerous. We did not purchase a house off of Hill Street, which is the main road. We bought our home as it offered the convenience of accessing the village in 27. Additionally, it's absolutely dangerous to eliminate our entry exit onto McGee Street, especially for emergencies or poor weather conditions. I do not believe that people on Somerset and Pleasant fully understood the ramifications of signing a so-called petition that evidently circulated during tea parties and other gatherings. After investigating this matter this week, we discovered some neighbors who signed the petition believed they were signing a measure for safety and did not realize they were supporting the dramatic measure of a road closure. So the number of people who signed this petition for a road closure is inflated and tainted. Many neighbors live elsewhere and had no idea that this blockade was even in place. In emergency situations, we need police vehicles and ambulances to have multiple access points. With the proposed blockade, we now have to suffer from traffic congestion on Hill Street, as homeowners on Somerset were now penalized. We're the victims. We pay hefty prices for village and town taxes, but our roads are taken from us as part of an ill-advised campaign by a few who have influenced others who do not comprehend what this potential blockade really means for the driving patterns. Many neighbors have not been back to Somerset or Pleasant since leaving on Labor Day and have no idea that the damage has already been done in a short amount of time. If one reads the Southampton Village minutes, they would not gather that there's already a blockade. Our elderly neighbors have to battle this left turn on Hill Street every time they go into town for their needs. And this is extremely inconvenient and anxiety-inducing for them. Our home values are at risk as many potential homeowners want the convenience of multiple entry and exit points onto Somerset. We are absolutely opposed to blocking this exit entrance from McGee Street and creating a cul-de-sac situation on Somerset with Hill Street as the only access point. We believe there are other reasonable options to deal with during the heavy early evening traffic and enforcing safety, and would like alternatives to be exposed. Nelson and Pope were hired to do a survey study, and we don't know what those results are and when they will be released. Also, I ask you, what exactly is the process and the timeline for taking down this blockade and exploring other solutions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kara, if you'd like to come up, you do have 3 minutes as well. Kristen, thank you very much for your comment. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Carol Zacharias. My name is Carol Zacharias. I'm at 160 Somerset, just down the street from Kristen. I just would like to note that we have tried stop signs to control the traffic. People go right through them. We have tried double yellow lines. People run over them. If you go down Somerset, you can see the tread marks from the cars that have sped around them. We have tried police enforcement. It is very expensive to have them sitting there all the time, and they can't possibly be there all the time. So number one, we've tried lots of options. They don't seem to work. It doesn't seem that you can control human behavior by signs. And unfortunately, we've tried everything. Secondly, it is a safety issue. We cannot dispel the safety issue. I was walking down this street not too long ago before the blockade. Somebody came around the corner. I'm walking two dogs, and he nearly ran us over. He absolutely nearly ran us over. And when I jumped aside, he screamed at us through the car with the windows closed, raised his hands. He was mad that I was in his way because he was trying to beat a car in front of me. So number one, there is a safety issue. I've experienced it myself. Number two, we've sent pictures of trucks and cars overturned in front lawns. Cars and trucks overturned in front lawns. We've given you the pictures. So this is not a fake safety issue. It's a real safety issue. And last, there was no boondoggling. There was no bamboozling here. There was no secrecy here. We've never had a tea party. We've never had a party to sign a petition. The petition was circulated with everyone on the street we could find addresses for, and we asked them if they wanted to sign it, and we explained what it was. It was a factual distribution with factual conversations with no emotions whatsoever. So to dispel this as a suggestion of few bamboozled by, bamboozling many is an absolute false narrative. Lastly, I'd like to say that of those people surveyed, 92% of the individuals living on the streets of Somerset and Pleasant signed in favor of it. And many, if not most, said to us, thank God you're doing this. We've been talking about this for years. We're scared to death. We've got to do something. So this wasn't a sleight of hand. It was deliberative. It was careful. And people are now coming forward saying, how can I help? This is really important to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional comments to be made publicly? Okay.
Janina Castro, Elm Street. I just wanted to second some of the comments from our neighbor earlier about the social club. I think you're well aware. I was here a couple weeks ago, and I think we found a decent resolution for the neighborhood. I just wanted to add, first of all, big thanks for the stop sign that you added there. I really think that's going to save lives on the end of the street towards the railroad. I did want to point out, I've been noticing, I think the curb opposite the stop sign has been expanded, and I've seen a ton of cars run over it already. So I worry that in the wintertime, in the dark, it's also going to prove to be a problem, and I certainly don't want it to become a safety concern. I've watched it happen over and over again, so I just wanted to call that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Val, for the quiet round of applause back there. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a public comment tonight? Regina? No? Okay.
I've heard a lot and I agree with everything.
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll keep on moving. Next up is our Employee of the Month. And our Employee of the Month today is Brennan Rack. Brennan is a laborer in our Highway Department, and he was nominated both by Brian DeRosca, who is one of our outstanding masons, as well as Corey Sweezy, who is the head of our Highway Department. Both are also doing a great job. And they basically wanted to state that Brennan has come in with a very good, positive attitude. He never complains. He is always interested in hearing more about the trade work, the masonry and carpentry, and he's outstanding as far as the time and attendance goes, and he's really stepped up. Brian DeRosco recommended him as one of our masons. It's a very skilled trade, and he does an outstanding job. Many people have seen some of the masonry work right outside Village Hall. It's great when we can do that work in-house, and Brennan has come in, and he is learning that trade as well. Corey had also wanted to mention that he had worked very hard on the Wyandanch project with Brian. Many people have seen the new work we've done right outside Wyandanch, and I think that was done very quickly. I would actually say that in the past, work wasn't done this quickly and as professionally, so we're seeing really great improvements in the Highway Department, and I'm very proud of all the members of both the Highway Department and the Public Works Department for their excellent work, and I love to see the new direction under Corey and Bob and Steve, and all those involved there. So thank you, and congratulations again to Brennan Rack from the Highway Department. Tonight we also have two board presentations. The first board presentation is by Tom Edmonds and Sean Denny from the Southampton History Museum. Gentlemen, feel free to come up, and if you don't mind keeping it on the briefer side, because we have quite a bit to get through tonight. Thank you.
Once again, Sean Denny, board member of the Southampton History Museum. I'm a townie also. I'm not from the village, but I have a vested interest in the village. My kids went to school here. I was on the board of the school here. I was on the board of St. John's, Southampton Animal Shelter, but I have a major interest in terms of our future infrastructure. So with that in mind, I'd like to show some slides from the museum, what we've done so far. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
right.
We can hear you.
It's all good.
Thanks for sharing these slides. I was there the other day, and it looks great. So thank you for the.
It's coming along. And we actually put a brook in.
Brook looks good too.
Sage.
I take it you had the DEC permit for the brook?
I don't even know what that means.
Did you do your DIS for that?
Well, the first slide's going to be a photograph of the western side of the museum. Now, interesting enough, this used to be on Main Street, but when they moved it back, they didn't flip it around. But I think in his will, he put in there that 3 realtors had to be in that location, and they are here today. Still got our brook there. It's going to take more than 3 minutes, so I got to reprieve.
That's okay. No, you get more time. Don't worry.
Okay.
You're a presenter, not a speaker.
Okay. Is someone's suggestion we put a brook in there and then the back and no? All right. This is the western side of the museum. It's actually to the side. It's not in the front. So there was actually moved back a number of years ago, 1926. Next slide. You'll notice it's kind of scant on the side. We put in 43 boxwood. Now, the boxwood are all mature. The intent initially was to, any shrub plantings we put in there, they were meant to be deer resistant, low maintenance, having a year-round appeal. And we put drip lines in there to make sure that it would preserve them. And it's an investment. This is something that's not a one-time. There's no hydrangeas there anymore. They don't last very long. They look good for 3 weeks. So this was an investment that this will look like this all year round. Next slide. It's a fence that was there. It was ugly. We tore it down, and the next slide is complementing this fence. The kids probably missed this from Halloween because it looks kind of scary. But the whole thing was a mess. The slides don't even do all the justice what we have. Thanks to Trustee Aresta, we were able to remove all these damaged fences. We were very prudent about our expense. We put in a stockade fence. It's like $10 a linear yard. They're very inexpensive. We got it from Riverhead. Next slide. This is the walkway now. If you notice what we replaced in the background, it's called Asmanthus. It's deer resistant. We have drip lines there. They will grow to maturity to be about 6 feet. We'll never even see that fence, so why put in expensive fencing when you don't need it? Next slide. This is a photograph of the north facing east toward the carriage house. Next slide. This is what it looks like actually about a week or so ago because we filled in the blanks. The intent long-term is to have the museum have a walk all the way around the perimeter so you can visit the various structures, the paint house, the schoolhouse, the outhouse, although I'm not sure why we have two of those. The carriage house and the various hildreths along the side, all the way around to the Sayer barn. That stone in the middle also is...
Millstone.
Well, how old is it?
Oh, 200.
Over 200 years old. It's natural algae on it. It's a focal point, so when you're walking in from the village-owned walkway from St. Ambrose adjacent to that, you walk straight ahead. It's a governing point for left to right. We have 3 more of those, so we're going to place those strategically around the area. Also, what you don't see here is that, like I said, the walkway continues going east, but there's a little stub there that directs you right to the paint house. So we think that's cool. Anyway, this is already done. This is the northwestern corner. That sundial looks pretty pathetic. We're going to move that to the center of the boxwoods, which will be right behind the museum where the walkway intersects. Makes a lot of sense. It's tiny. And in its place, we're going to put that water fountain? No, the water fountain. Yeah, it's a water fountain which is surrounded by boxwood. So when you're walking north from the street from Meeting House Lane, it's a focal point. If you're coming from the St. Ambrose side, it's a focal point. It's better well served in terms of appearance, not in the front, the entrance, but somewhere where it's visible. Next one. This is a section that's designed for pergola. The pergola would be about roughly 586 square feet. We had that as part of our original plan. Well, actually, that billboard there has it. That foundation, it is a concrete foundation. No ant hills, no weeds growing out of it. This is a forever thing once it's been installed. So we made sure whatever we did was not a short-term solution, but it'll be where they're way long after I'm gone. We think that's integral in addition to the terrace. Do we have a picture of the terrace too? Is the terrace up there?
There's the
Oh, well, you see that big dark spot? That's the terrace. Nick Dino, who actually I was on the board when we hired him as a high school principal, COVID's created a lot of issues with regard to outdoor, indoor, whatever. That's going to be an educational area. Seating for kids. It's also can be used for senior citizens. There's so many different options available during maybe 4 or 5 months a year for chairs. We could even put like a tiny screen up for movies. So there's many options available for that area. But if you notice it, you go from the terrace to a little walkway, and that circular thing is where the millstone is. and the pergola is to your left. We just filed with the ARB today for next December 12th meeting, I think it's 15th meeting, for permission for the pergola. What else can I say up there? There's not a heck of a lot. Basically, it's just, it's a brick foundation, and it's a forever brick foundation. In terms of expense, and we thank the mayor and the village trustees and Charlene, who doesn't want to see me as much anymore. But Roy, you sent me an email when I sent something, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, and said, don't forget, you go out there and still try to secure money. Now we did. Gardner Foundation, well, a foundation elected not to give it to us because we were government owned. And we took that to heart, and we're still going out there looking for monies. So the $150,000, which was not in 1 year, but 2 adjacent years of funding, we took that money, and that represented only 38% of what we spent so far. So we've spent 62%. And of that, 150,000 came from you guys, 2 fiscal years. We came up with, what was it? The museum came up with 158,000. 10,000 came from the Rotary. 5,000 came from anonymous donors. And then we received about 63,000 in-kind donations. I don't want to underestimate in-kind. Most of the, I hate to say it, but most of the ideas that Tom and I present are plagiarized. Why? Because we took the brightest people in the room who were high in their game. CMX Sammy did the design. He did an incredible job. Chris LaGuardia plugged in all the plantings. He did an incredible job. Davis Movers gave us considerations on moving things that you wouldn't want to touch because they're ancient. Ernesto Rojas, a mason, gave us over $10,000 in free considerations. And there's probably a lot more, but it jump-started with the plan. We felt we had a plan. It was actionable. We could execute it. Without your support at that time, we'd be sitting here talking about it like we did, I guess, 20 years ago. So Tom and I really do appreciate that. So tonight, what we're really asking for is to the bank of mom and dad. We'd like an advance on our allowance of $75,000, which we would get July 1st, assuming that was approved for July 1st. That will kickstart us, and I can assure you that 75, I will probably end up getting over 100,000 more on a one-to-one relationship. I mean, I can't say I have it in my pocket until I get a check. But I can assure you that if you agree to provide that with us, I guess immediately, because I don't want to stop the work we're doing. I want to keep rolling through Thanksgiving because you can't get anybody around Christmas time or January. So having the money in too late is, we won't be able to use it. And right now is an opportune time.
There is a resolution on the agenda to authorize the...
Is that payable immediately? Just asking. Anyway, that's.
One more thing, the board agreed to match that.
Oh, the board agreed to match that. So we're starting at a 1-to-1, and we're going up from there. But I have a feeling we could probably end up getting 50% more, not from the board, but just
We
however.
could probably get you a manual check if we get 3 of the trustees to sign off on it.
I like your style. Thank you. If there's any
Thank you very
questions,
much.
we'd be more than glad to answer or, anybody? No?
Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
And thank you, Tom, as well.
All right, thank you, Sean. We appreciate the progress you're making. It's, I remember actually I was on the board prior to being elected, and we always would discuss in our board meetings that the building and site needed some improvement, so very happy to see that getting done.
Fred Thiel saw it with his wife last week and liked it as well.
Well, maybe we can
Oh,
go
yeah,
ask him for some
you
funds.
should come up with some money too. Yeah.
We'll see.
He's in a good mood. He was just reelected, so we can call him tomorrow too. Okay, so our next presentation, thank you again, gentlemen, is regarding the Department of Fire Prevention, and this is presented by Dean McNamara, our fire marshal. Thank you, Dean, for coming out tonight.
Good evening. Tonight, we're just going to be discussing a little bit about the fee schedule for the Department of Fire Prevention. We were asked to evaluate the current fee standings that we have currently on village record and see if they matched the time and resources that we put into operating these permits. The fee schedule that we have, we looked at. It could use a little bit of adjustments across the board. We've come up with our suggestions for you. And if you have some questions, we can discuss them. Basically, we looked at all these fees. As a permit comes in, it gets evaluated, reviewed, I should say, and then a permit's issued, and then inspections incur until it's completed. We thought, when you look at them, you try to cover the cost of what that time and resources would be, and that's what, this is an average. Some jobs can take a little less, and some jobs do take more. But I thought this was a reasonable compromise there across the board.
And Dean, I noticed that some of the costs actually went down in some instances.
When this was originally created, it was basically drafted from, in some ways, comparable to other municipalities. And then when you take and you look and maybe due to quantities or the commodities that they're having on the parcel, the time is relatively the same. So just because there's more product sometimes doesn't necessarily mean it's going to take us longer. So I just thought it was easier to basically make them, a lot of them are uniform. You can see on the list, just keeping that all one.
And a lot of these things, it looks like you don't even really have come up too frequently.
They're not frequent. There's things in the code that we don't want to find that you didn't have on the books, but the code would say you need operating permits for a lot of different products, and that's what they're all listed there. But yes, many of them are not something that we have in the village.
And one other thing I saw you were doing is you were updating our code so that we are in compliance with New York State fire code law as opposed to international law, which our current code has us operating under. For what reason, I don't exactly know, but obviously we need to correct it that we are abiding by New York State fire code law.
Yeah, correct. Previous editions of the code that we had was the International Fire Code. That section was in there from during that era, that time, like 2017, and then 2020, we went to the New York State Code. We were following the fire code, but New York State was using the international code at the time. So it's a verbiage change just because it always was technically New York State fire code. So I wanted to eliminate that one section because we don't use the international fire code book anymore.
I appreciate that. Obviously, Dean, I know you spent a lot of time and effort going over this and really looking at these. As the village attorney said, if we're going to look at fees, it has to be based on actual work and the effort and time, administrative costs that go into those efforts. And I know you spent a lot of time looking at this objectively and have come up with these numbers. And again, these fees are, obviously for those that have these issues that come before them, where they need them addressed by the fire marshal. It's certainly not something that would be paid for by the rest of the village residents, only if there is a certain issue for which they need the fire marshal's concurrence.
That's correct. Yeah, just under permits, additional, we do building inspections and other things that do not require the permits. These are for the task at hand to cover those other circumstances where they need our assistance in that process.
Right, and we were able to increase the building permits, or this board increased the building permits before I joined the board last year, the building permit fees, for, again, those that come before the village with an application, whether it be before the land use boards, or then obviously a demolition permit, a building permit, any type of permit they need. And then, you realized that we should also, and Gina and I spoke about this, that you should also look at the fire marshal fees that are charged to applicants that come before the village for these respective, events, assignments. So you put the time in to do this, and I appreciate that. and the hard
You're
work that
welcome.
you do as our fire marshal to ensure that the village is safe at all times. I know at one point, we actually had 2 fire marshals, and that position, the second position, was eliminated. So all of this now is falling on your shoulders. And maybe if we are able to increase these fees, we might be able to look at a part-time fire marshal that could assist when the workload is very heavy. Because I realize, again, we did have at one point 2 fire marshals in this village, and now we just have you, but we appreciate all you do, Dean.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I enjoy doing it. And yes, I mean, any help would be grateful at your discretion. Coming up in a new year and stuff, that'd be great. I think these are comparable solutions to that number, and it's a suggestion for you.
No, we appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Dean.
for your time, Dean.
So do these fees are more in line with what other municipalities are charging for this at this time? Because when
yeah.
was the last time these were actually looked at, the
I-
fee schedule?
I believe, don't quote me, I think it was around 2017.
Okay.
They were revised. They are comparable to most of these are comparable to our neighboring municipalities. In some instances, they're more, and in some instances, they're about the same, if maybe a few dollars less. But they're right in the same ballpark.
Okay, that's what it looked like.
But I think what's important to realize is that Dean looked at these
What
each
it was.
individually and took into account what he and the administrative burden of carrying out these tasks on behalf of the village is, and therefore then came to numbers based on that workload.
Correct.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
You're welcome.
Are
Have
there
a
any
great day.
other comments or questions from the board? Trustee Stevenson? Dean, a couple quick questions before you go, if you don't mind. Just curious, how many permits, do you have the total number of permits that have been issued under these changes in this past year, year to date, or last year?
I don't have the numbers on all the permits in particular. I have some numbers for bonfires and tents, but I don't have the operating permits information handy.
Got it. Bonfires and tents, how much approximately, do you know the total number?
Yes.
I'm just curious what they are.
Bonfires last year, for this year alone, up to date, was about 350. And for tents, they were approximately around 90 permits.
Okay.
And I would point out, though, that when I looked at those numbers with you, Dean, we are keeping the tent permit for over 50% of the tents the same as they have been. You are only increasing the tent permits for less than half of the ones that we had this year, and those are on the really large tents. I mean, I think you had 2 this year that you told me were 15,000 square feet. Obviously,
over 15.
Over 15,000 square feet. So obviously, the work involved to ensure that an over 15,000 square foot tent is not going to be flammable or cause, a serious issue should a fire erupt. There's a lot more work that goes into that, and so obviously those fees had to be increased. But I think you obviously were mindful that the majority, over half of the tent permits that we did this year, the price will stay the same even with these increases in place. It's only increasing on the very large tents.
That's correct. The 47 of those were the smaller tents that are typical for, homeowners to have in their yards for events. That suggestion is to keep it the same. And as you were saying, as the tent gets larger, the occupancy gets larger, the decorators go a little bit more than what we've had on smaller tents. They become basically houses or a commercial establishment. And in some of these tents, they're pretty elaborate, and they do take some additional time to do. And that's exactly the point,
Well,
is
and
that
I
our
understand
time would be
with
more
one of the
there.
larger tents, you had to go and analyze the materials that the decorator was using on that tent to ensure that the fabrics and other materials was not flammable, combustible, and what met the standards, obviously, to ensure fire safety of occupants of that tent at whatever event was being held. So obviously that's quite a lot of work, and I understand that, you know, that's a lot of time and effort on your part, and I do feel that it does make sense that those tents, we have to increase the fees charged to those. But again, it's less than half of the tents that are put up in the village.
That's correct, yes.
All right. Dean, thank you again.
You're very welcome.
Eric, do you have a
Thank you
comment
for
to
having
make,
me.
or if you can?
do we get from the tents?
Do you have that
I'm sorry?
number, Dean? How much revenue is generated from the tent fees?
You said there was 90 permits, right? So the tents are.
This is an approximate number, but to date, this year, it might have been close to around $7,300, and that if any of those had late fees, I did not include that,
So $7,300 for all the tents in the village?
approximately.
Yeah.
And how much do you charge for a big tent versus?
Could you tell us the charge for a big tent versus a small tent or whatever, yeah?
Yeah, we broke it down into 4 categories. Let's see, 5 categories. So it goes up to 1,500 square feet, or is the average small tent that people would like to have. That's $100.
And that's the fee that's not changing?
Correct.
Correct, okay.
You want the current?
Yeah,
and
maybe
then
just
after?
break it down.
Dean, I have it if you need it.
Yeah.
You got 100 for less than 1,500 square feet, 1,500 to 3,600 square feet. It's 150 going up to 200, 3,600 square feet to 1,200 going up to 300, 10,000 but less than 1,500 square feet, 250 going up to 350, and then 15,000 square feet or greater, 350 going up to 450. And then tents, canopies, commercial sponsored events sponsored by a business located out of Southampton Village, is 1,000, no change. Special
Right.
event on beach, tent permit, 350, no change. Late fee going from 50 to 100. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Well, that's
yes.
very good, yeah.
Well explained.
No, so anyway, Eric,
You
yeah.
should charge more.
I appreciate that, Eric, thank
Well,
you.
I don't think that's really, I actually wouldn't mind charging more for the larger tents. For the smaller tents, those are like kind of the everyday people that maybe we
Yeah,
wanna
well, that's why we
hit them on
kept,
the
that's why
pocket.
we kept the
But,
over 50% of tents will see no change
Change at
in the
all.
fees at all, $100. But again, if you think you should go back and look at these numbers, and on the really large, you know, sophisticated, elaborate tents, whether that maybe should be increased more, you know, again, maybe you can sharpen your pencil and look at the numbers again, Dean.
That's fine. I can do that. Just to help you with some of the information is that if you start from the 1,500 or less, it was 47 tent permits. Then it was 18, and then 17 for 36 to 10,000, and then 2, and then 2.
At the largest sizes.
Yes.
Yeah,
2
not
and
too
2.
many people are using an over 15,000 square foot tent.
Yeah, they were.
Those are monsters, yeah.
Yes, there could be one other one that usually occurs, but that's what I had in the file from this year so far.
Thank you, Dean. I appreciate your
Thank
work on
you.
this.
You're welcome. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you again. So we'll keep on moving. By the way, the residents on Somerset, if you think we're passionate about tents, you should see how passionate we are about traffic. But thank you. So we do have 2 public hearings tonight. I see Christian Pico in the audience from the Planning Commission. So I'll make a motion to open up the first public hearing, a public hearing regarding local law 14-2022, the proposal to amend Village Code, Chapter 107 on trees. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So Christian, are you coming up to present, or are we just going to, okay.
Do you have anything you want to say, Christian?
Or add.
Okay.
Say, 'cause he's not
Okay.
saying.
So just so the public knows, this is talking about trees only, public trees in the village right-of-way. So this is not controlling trees on private property. It's only on the village right-of-way, you know, village-owned street trees. And so that's what this is. This is governing. And actually, Christian, maybe you could just explain a little bit about how we would become a tree city or, you know, USA or whatever that's about.
Sure. So in terms of the application for the Tree City USA, once the resolution is passed after the public hearing, we would have the local law sent over to Albany and filed. Once I have that, then I can go ahead and do the application. I will work with the village planner to get that done.
And what is the deadline again?
December 31st.
So it has to be submitted by year end?
Correct,
So
yeah.
that's why you need us to pass this so that you can get that work on and
That's right.
finalized.
That's right. Now, I would
Got it.
say that the challenge of all this, well, it looks nice on paper, and the execution is a bit of a challenge to find the right people for this tree committee. And we're only looking for 2 village residents to step up and work on, let's call it an urban forest management plan, and assist Steve Phillips and Corey and the others to have a proactive plan in the management of the trees. And that's the challenge, so we appeal to the public to find 1 to 2 people who are very knowledgeable on trees and knowledgeable in getting management plans together to work on this important project, as trees are definitely an asset class in the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work. I'll open this up to any other comments from the public. And if there are none, seeing this as a public hearing, any comments from the board? Any further comments?
No.
The only thing I'll add is, again, I wanted to thank you, Christian, Laura Davini, and members of the Planning Commission for their help on this topic. Again, for the public's knowledge, one of the reasons that we're doing this, in addition to having a good a tree law in our books, is that initiative we took was to become a Tree City USA. There are many Tree City USAs across the country, and we'd like to be part of that group. And that goes part and parcel with having a village arborist and having a Arbor Day celebration as well. And this will help us essentially in that process. So thank you again. So I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. Yeah, sure, please, come on up.
It's Christine Sullivan Whitaker. I had a question for clarification, because it always was my understanding that one wasn't allowed, if you're adjacent to a street where there's a village tree, that actually, I knew this from the, what is it, the Public Works or Highway Department, that you would have to get permission and say what the scope of the work was. But this tends to read, it's the duty of people owning or occupying real property bordering on any street upon which there be trees to prune such trees, you know, so that they're not obstructing things. And it talks about, you know, about the distance, but it's not clear, because, I mean, certain streets I know what are village trees, but it makes it sound like it used to be that you needed a permit to, if you were having some pruning done on your property and you wanted to have a couple of branches cut on a tree that's, you know, technically a village tree. I know which trees are village trees. on
Sure,
my
if they're in the
street.
village right away.
But you needed permission to, or actually it was the village that was responsible for pruning those trees. So this doesn't quite read like that.
Christian, could you shed some light on that? Because again, I'm not that familiar with some of the tree laws that we've had on the books.
So anyway, I'm reading what you have here, but my experience has been otherwise. And I think it would be good to have a list of what streets, and maybe the, you know, they're talking about distance from the curb, on a pavement.
There is something in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that's section 107. That's on section 107.13, the issuance of permit and when you need permitting. The point is the difference between public trees and private trees impeding on the right-of-way. So on public trees, the village has to care for them. On private trees that are in a right-of-way, the village can ask a village resident to care for it, and that's that section, indeed, 107.14 that you're referring to.
It says protecting municipal trees, but
So-
it was always that the owner had no right to touch it.
I think the confusion, though, is whether the tree is growing on your property out into the village right-of-way, or if the tree itself is rooted in the village right-of-way. Christine, am I correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, except that in some cases, I mean, I was told what were village trees. And they often are, you know, there was, in the past, they just went around and planted trees, and they weren't really terribly, you know, measuring or careful. So I think you do have encroachments. That's all.
Yeah, it's really a definition of, Christine, it's a definition of the right-of-way. and what it is to the street. It's somewhere else in the code, and I think it's, 10 feet from the street constitutes a right-of-way. Is that right?
Well, it's also different on a corner where you have to have visibility. There have to be corner cuts. I think it's 20 feet on a corner with hedging.
Right.
But, again, I'm happy to discuss it further with you, Christine, but I think this, do you
Well,
think it could be clearer, Christian? or-
The principle is really the difference between what constitutes a public tree and what is a private tree. So
Right.
it's fairly clear what constitutes a private tree, obviously on your property line.
Right.
And the rest of it is public.
Right.
And we're dealing simply with public. So I hope that helps, Christine.
The street trees that are, in the village right of way, those are the ones that are then, basically controlled by the village. But if you have a tree on your property off of the village right of way, but then it encroaches and grows across a path or a sidewalk or into the street and is obstructing vehicles or pedestrians, that's what, then, although it's a private tree, if it's growing into the village right of way, the village has to take action to have the homeowner trim that back so that we maintain the free passage of pedestrians or vehicles.
That's right. Thank you.
Christian, maybe before you go, I have a couple of clarifications and maybe a few small changes to make. So,
you didn't think you were getting off that
Yeah,
easy, did you, Christian?
exactly. So, there's two concerns. So, one quickly, sometimes this ends up in local laws, but at the end, the chapter it says 107-16 enforcement penalty. Andrew, we should probably just remove if you're in violation of this, says you may be imprisoned for a term not exceeding 15 days. We probably just strike that out. We usually do that in some of our local laws, just so that that's not an option if you were to, prune a tree or something like that, and incorrectly. And then secondly, there is a section
Well,
here.
let me just say on that front, because we did look into this, your traditional code recall to penalty and offenses, which is Article 2. Andrew is looking at that right now. I think it's Article 2, Section 1, which we refer to on a regular basis throughout the entire code, actually says that. That's just New York State law. Now it'll be up to the judge to define whether it's a jailable offense or not. But that's just standard language.
I would
And
add that
Andrew,
most-
if you could refer
Most
us to
penalty
that.
sections in the village code also simply refer to Section 2, which provides for the same penalties.
Which includes that. Now, specifically, we outline this because the fine, as in this Article 2 that Andrew was referring to in our code, are not sufficient when you're actually taking down a public tree, which is going to cost us a lot of money, and a minimum of $1,000 for these trees could be a lot more than that. And that's the reason we insisted in having an enforcement and penalty section that was a little greater than the standard code, which is fairly de minimis given the damage that could be done to a public tree and the cost of replacement to the village. That's why we did it that way.
All right, thank you. And the second thing I have is that as part of this local law, there is a section on heritage trees, and it says obviously no heritage tree. Obviously, public trees are protected, but it also says no heritage tree shall be destroyed, removed from soil, or any act committed which causes destruction, et cetera, et cetera. But then, who determines the heritage trees is the tree commission, and knowing the landscaping community, it could make sense to have the Board of Trustees work with them to determine the heritage trees, just because that gives the tree commission quite a bit of authority there. So it may be better if it's just taken through the Board of Trustees rather than the tree commission, so that a tree commission cannot, unilaterally determine the heritage trees, because there will probably be some debate amongst the landscaping community about what is defined as a heritage tree. Clearly, we want to protect all rare, endangered trees in the village, but where there's been, again, significant discussion among the professional community out there.
Sure, so that's something we have discussed with the professional community. In fact, Trustee Manger and I visited one of his leaders and went through this whole discussion for an hour in his office not too long ago. First of all, in terms of heritage trees in the village, so we have 15,000 trees in the public way. I'm not sure we have that many heritage trees, and that's going to be a big issue, unfortunately. But more importantly, I think the issue is if you're the issue of the delegation of what defines a heritage tree is given to the tree committee. Now, if you want to review and insert yourselves as trustees into the definition, into whatever list this tree commission is going to come up with, I mean, you can, but once it's on once it is a heritage, defined as a heritage tree, you have to legislate it and code it. We did have the idea of having one of the trustees, who's actually the liaison for the DPW and the parks, to sit ex officio to avoid any conflict of interest issues, etc. On that committee. It was the idea to have that in place. But if you're going to want to have the Board of Trustees legislate what is a heritage tree, I don't know what to tell you. Be my guest.
Well,
I don't think it's a good use of your time.
The tree
I
committee
think
could
there's a
give
lot
us-
of other things you could be working on.
Tree committee could give us a list, but what that we have seen the landscaping community come out, and what that will do is that it could give. I find the elected officials are more accountable to the public, and this is a trickier topic than you might imagine, or actually you would know this from the leaf blower committee. So you wouldn't want to just empower an appointee to base. I mean, that could lead to some unintended consequences. Again, you're right; it's not the biggest issue. This is not something I'd like to spend my time doing. It'd be great for the tree committee to determine this, but from speaking with the landscaping community and other people, you want to have people who are accountable to the public to determine this, because it could grow quite substantially.
Well, look, it is your prerogative as mayor in this board to ask the tree committee to give you the list of whatever they come up with in terms of heritage trees, and reopen the discussion if you want to. I wouldn't change the legislation for that purpose.
I mean, I would just say, Jesse, I do think we need people that are really qualified arborists and knowledgeable about trees to help define what is a heritage tree. I mean, I don't think I would be able to define what a heritage tree is. I mean, if the commission wanted to come forward with recommendations, and then the board could, review it and then adopt that's one thing. But I just don't know if any of us are really qualified here to evaluate trees and whether they reach the level of a heritage tree as defined for these purposes. That would be my concern.
Look, on that front, I, in fact, had one of the leading landscapers in the village on the phone no later than yesterday, and he and I were discussing trying to find the right people for that board. It's going to be a challenge, but
That's my point.
the landscaping community is helping us to look in the people they know who could serve without a conflict of interest. So everybody's on it, and the landscaping community, is well aware of this and understands the challenge for us to even man these posts.
I mean, it sounds to me, Jesse, what you're asking for is that the Board of Trustees approve any heritage tree designation before it becomes final, and I
That's
would
right,
agree
yeah,
with that.
yeah. That's exactly my point.
Yeah, surely the tree committee can put forward, once they finish their work, this, and have it approved by the Board of Trustees.
So perhaps we can just change the language, so has been recommended by the Village of Southampton Tree Commission and as approved by the Board of Trustees. A quick amendment, and that would
and maybe
solve
as
that problem.
and adopted by the village
And
board
adopted,
of trustees.
okay, yeah.
To 107 for sub C.
In definitions, 107-2.
Do you see that, Christian? I can't.
Yeah,
find
it's
it
in the
myself.
definitions, but I
Or
wouldn't
which has
put
been
it in the
determined.
definition necessarily, because under the authority given to the Tree Commission, 107.4, there is reference to the duty to, it's 107.4C, so Council, I would agree with you. That's where you would have that. The Tree Commission has the authority to designate tree as heritage, as defined, and so that could be the one you would do an amendment, Andrew.
We would add language to
Yeah.
subject to review and approval
Yeah.
by BRT.
Because what the mayor is referring to in 107.2 is merely a recital of the definition of the code. So from a writing legislation, that's how you would do it.
If the board is so inclined, this would require a redraft reposting it could be done at the next meeting, but it can't be done at this meeting.
All right, so let's do this. Are you sure it's significant enough to require a renoticing?
I am.
Okay, so we can adopt this tonight to get this moving, and then we could just do an amendment at the next board meeting, if that's okay with the board. I just want to get this done.
Yeah, that's fine, because I want him to be able to start working on it.
Okay, so let's do that. So we'll close, we'll adopt, and then in December or January,
Yeah,
we
you
can just
can.
renotice
We
and
won't make
amend
you
it, so it has that language. But we don't want to hold this up, because we know how important this is for the Tree City USA determination.
Are you okay with that, Christian?
That's fine.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Appreciate the good work. Thank you again to you and the members of the Planning Commission. So I'll make a motion to close the first public hearing regarding local law 14-2022, the proposal to amend.
Was this the second public hearing?
First.
It was a
Oh, okay,
continuation.
okay.
So,
Before. I'll second that.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The second is a public hearing regarding local law 22-2022, the proposal to amend Village Code, Chapter 110-15, speed regulations, and Chapter 110-39, Schedule H, speed regulations, Schedule B. I'll make a motion to open. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is a quick update to the code. I don't know if any discussion is even
No,
needed
do you
for that matter,
want to
if
just,
anyone-
Maybe just wanna
Andrew,
explain
just
what that
explain what it
is.
is, just so the public knows?
Sure, this modifies the speed limit on North Main Street, which is currently 30 miles an hour from Bowden Square to the village border, and it changes that to set the 30-mile-hour limit from Railroad Plaza to the village border. The remainder of North Main would be 25 miles an hour.
Yes, that's exactly right, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments from the public? Okay, very good. I'll make a motion to close public
Second.
hearing regarding local law 22 to second, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we had a number of communications to the board. Many of those have been communicated publicly. The rest are in the packet. We do not have any discussion items tonight, so we will move forward with suggested resolutions. Charlene, I'll let you take this from here.
Mayor, resolution number 1, resolve the claims for the warrant dated November 10th, totaling 2022, totaling $810,602.93. Warrant A17 General Fund, $61,675.81. Warrant H7 Capital Fund, and $10,281.03. Warrant A18 Utilities. Warrant are audited and approved. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 2, resolve the reading of the minutes for the meetings of October 20th and October 28th, 2022 are dispensed, and the minutes are accepted as filed by the village clerk, and the actions taken at those meetings are hereby ratified and approved. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 3, resolve the Board of Trustees approves the request from the Southampton History Museum to allocate funds from the approved 2023 capital budget in the amount of $75,000. As presented, the funds will be provided early to support their current beautification project. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 4, the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Southampton hereby approve local law 14-2022, the proposal to amend Village Code Chapter 107, trees. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 5, resolve the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Southampton hereby approves local law 22-2022, the proposal to amend Village Code Section 110-15, speed regulations, and 110-39, Schedule H, speed regulations, Section B. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 6, resolve the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Southampton authorize the village clerk to publish a notice of public hearing to be held on Thursday, December 8th, 2022, 6 PM as a hybrid in-person / Zoom meeting regarding local law 23-2022. To the proposal to amend Village Code Section 58-3, subsection O, schedule of permit fees, and Section 58-4, subsection B4, maintenance of equipment. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 8, whereas the village board, number 7, the Village Board of Trustees of the Southampton, Incorporated Village of Southampton authorizes the village clerk to publish a notice of public hearing to be held on Thursday, December 8th, 2022 at 6 PM as a hybrid in-person / Zoom meeting regarding local law 24-2022, the proposal to add Chapter 109 vacant property registry. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 8, whereas the village board has determined that in the best interest of the residents of the village will now be served by setting a clear expectations of residents who seek relief before various village boards. Now therefore be it resolved that where a village building inspector issues a denial pursuant to Village Code Section A119-3, subsection D, said denial shall be specific, shall specify the order of applicant's appearance before the village boards, should applicant file an appeal thereto, and is further resolved that where such reversal requires action by the Village Zoning Board of Appeals, said order shall require applicant to receive a decision on such appeal from the Village Zoning Board of Appeals prior to making the application related to the building inspector's refusal from any other village board. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 9, resolve the Board of Trustees of the Incorporated Village of Southampton authorize the village clerk to publish a notice of public hearing to be held on Thursday, December 8th, 2022, 6 PM as a hybrid in-person / Zoom meeting regarding local law 25-2022, the proposal to amend Chapter 119-3, subsection D, examination of application, issuance of permit, disapproval of Chapter A19 of the Village Code, building construction regulations. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 10, the Board of Trustees directs the Finance Department to make the following budget modifications. Transfer from budget line A 1620.1, building maintenance salaries in the amount of $5,000 to budget line A 1620-12, building maintenance overtime in the amount of $5,000. Just as a point of reference, we are short about 4 staff members in that department, and so some of the workload is being used by overtime of the existing staff. So we needed a budget mod to cover this. So is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Question. So what happened to these people? Why are they?
We have 4 vacancies.
One retired, one resigned. It's been a while, over the last 3 months. 4 months.
Well, how soon is it going to be before we can fill these positions?
We have positions posted. We have a couple of people that are interested in them. We've received some applications. We're waiting for civil service to approve.
Okay.
Most within. We did an internal posting, and some of our DPW department from different divisions are applying.
Yeah. Okay. Because obviously, overtime is overtime, and then you don't want the folks to get burned out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're trying to hire, and especially before we have 3 vacant AEOs right now, and we're coming into winter season. So
I
we're
know.
trying.
How can we expedite that?
We are trying very hard to, and we're trying to incentivize
Trying
and
Okay.
offer the class for CDL for the DPW workers as well.
Okay. All right. That's
Note
it.
that this is building maintenance?
This is building maintenance.
Right, so, building maintenance is more, custodial, et cetera. And what I hear from some of the members is that they don't mind doing the overtime, so.
Okay.
No threat of getting burnt out. They'll
Okay.
tell us they actually
Okay.
enjoy doing the extra work. And,
Okay.
a few $1,000s of overtime.
No, I
may be
understand.
better than hiring 4 people.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So,
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have someone that was, really struggling with getting the work done. Yeah.
They're doing a good job.
Okay.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 11, resolve the Board of Trustees approves George Lynn as a probationary member of the Agawam Hose Company Number 1, effective November 10th, 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 12, the Board of Trustees approves the request from the Southampton Fire Department to modify the schedule of Dennis J. Chupi, Fire Department Manager, from a 35-hour-a-week to a 40-hour-a-week effective November 11th, 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Discussion. I
Yes.
just want to explain to the board, Dennis is the only paid member of the fire department. He has been working a 35-hour week, but also putting in for overtime. In this year's budget, we allocated $15,000 for part-time help so that he wouldn't need to work overtime. So he made the counter proposal that he would work a 40-hour week. He felt the additional 5 hours would enable him to do all the required tasks. And in exchange, he's agreed that would not put in for any overtime and would not require the part-time help that we had budgeted. So net, I believe it actually ends up beneficial. We save money by doing this.
Okay, good.
Yes, and he will be a salaried employee after that. He's not a member of the collective bargaining unit, so he'll be non-represented as a salaried position.
Okay.
So we need a second.
Second.
Roy? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution number 13, resolve the Board of Trustees approves the event application submitted by Thelma Harris of the Southampton Town Anti-Bias Task Force Committee to host their annual gathering to be held at Agawam Park on Tuesday, December 13th, 2022, from 6 to 7 p.m. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That concludes the resolution portion.
Thank you. There are no appointments this evening, so we'll move to comments from board members. Trustee Resta, you can kick us off.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say congratulations to Brennan as being nominated and receiving the Employee of the Month award. And I also like to thank Corey and Brian that they recognized his good and thoughtful work. So congratulations to all. The other thing I'd like to remind everyone that tomorrow is Veterans Day. And there is a parade that starts with our veterans up on the corner of Main and Job's Lane at the Presbyterian Church. And they march down to Agawam Park, and the ceremony starts there at 11. And I think I'm the daughter of a veteran, a World War II veteran, actually. And it's a very big day for me because not only my father, but my two uncles, the three of them, served in World War II away from home. I don't think they even do that anymore. My grandmother had 3 sons and they were all away. So I understand what veterans go through. I appreciate without them we wouldn't have the freedoms that we do enjoy today. So just a reminder, let's support those who allow us to do the things that we are able to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Resta. Trustee Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank all partners that participated with our breast health awareness. I'd like to thank Southampton Arts Center for hosting this space for us. I'd like to thank Lucia's Angels. I'd like to thank Stony Brook Clinic. I also would like to thank the Sun River Health, all coming together, as well as our partner Helping with Nutrition, which was a main prospect. So we want to thank that this is growing, that the awareness and the participation of our village and our resident, our partners, educating and supporting those that are healing and preventing any lack of education, and also supporting those for breast health. So we want to thank all of those for supporting, and it was well received last Saturday. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Appreciate the comments. Trustee Manger.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just want to, again, hope as many village residents come out for the Veterans Day ceremony tomorrow. I think the rain is supposed to hold off in the morning, and so it should be a nice gathering to honor veterans across the country and specifically here in Southampton Village. Also, a quick shout out to my niece, Catherine Fleming, who is getting married this weekend. So I will be going to her wedding this weekend. I'm looking forward to that. And I also just wanted to update the public on an initiative I started with Charlene, and that was to consolidate some of the village contracts so that we could save money by having economies of scale and to use state contracts, specifically on heating oil. The cost of heating oil is supposed to go up this winter. We actually have, I believe, contracts with 3 different companies, and that's costing the village quite a bit of money. And so if we can consolidate those onto one contract and use a state contract for heating oil, I believe that will save the village and the taxpayers some money this winter. But Charlene, did you want to add anything on the consolidation of the contracts? Because that's something I discussed with you first when I got onto the board back
Yes.
over the summer, and I know you've been working on it, and I heard that you had an update today, so I was hoping
yes,
you
yes.
could share that, because I think it really is very good for the village residents to know that we are doing everything we can to try and economize and save money for the taxpayer.
Yes, Bob Hand is working very hard. Yesterday, we spent some time on the New York State OGS website and downloaded some of their state contracts and got some vendors. For example, we have a different vendor in each of the buildings dealing with the security and the fire alarms. And now it's time for us to update that and bring everything up to the most current technology. We found a firm that was in Bohemia. We called them. They came out the next day. They're going to give us a quote to, get us all in one system. A lot of the system is proprietary, so each building has its proprietary equipment that requires a different vendor, and it's not a good way to operate. So we're going to get a state contract pricing. This company also services all the security and fire alarms in the Southampton School District and the Bridgehampton School District. So they have a lot of experience out here, and we're going to start attacking one area at a time and just trying to consolidate and standardize these contracts.
And I appreciate your efforts on that, Charlene, because
Thank you.
it will go to, again, simplifying, but also saving money by having contracts where we can realize some economies of scale.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene, for doing that. Thank you, Trustee Manger. Great job on that. And congratulations to Catherine. We'll have to send her a congratulatory letter. And we will remind her that fees for her tents are going up. But thank you for the good work on the contracts. Trustee Stevenson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciated the public comment this evening, people talking about the traffic issue. Certainly every year, we see the traffic get worse. And up until this current administration, I'm not really sure a lot was done about it. Of course, every move we make does not make everybody happy. But you have to try something. Just to sit here and say, well, traffic's bad, we can't do anything about it, there's too many cars out here, not enough roads. We're trying to do stuff. We had this pilot program. One of the gentlemen was talking about, did it make sense to have police at every intersection? Probably not, but we were trying to affect a change. And if you had just put a couple of cones on the corner, I guarantee you people would have been driving over the cones. In no time, they wouldn't have been there anymore. We have to learn. We have to see what happens. Every change you make affects something else. Yes, by closing Somerset, there is now more traffic on Bishop. I live off of Bishop, so I see that. There are unintended consequences of every action. But until you take those actions, you don't learn. I'm sure Lieutenant Hertel learned a lot from what she experienced during the trial period. The board's learned a lot. We're getting more feedback from our residents. We're trying. We're trying. We're not going to make the traffic go away, but maybe we can learn to manage it a little bit better. And I agree with Trustee Aresta that perhaps the only solution is to make the traffic difficult enough in the village that some people change their minds and go back onto County Road 39. That's really where they belong. So that was one thing. The other points that was made in the public hearing was about Liberty Gardens. I agree with those comments completely. Were it a development that would directly benefit workforce housing of people who live in the village or even in the town of Southampton, you might get me to agree that it was a good idea, even given the tremendous effect it's going to have on traffic and congestion in the area. But the fact that it is not going to benefit citizens of this village or of the town directly, that it's a federally funded project, for all the reasons that were espoused, I can't see putting it there. And I agree with all of the comments that were made regarding the deficiencies in the environmental impact survey of the segmentation of that site. And I just want people to understand that this is not something we as the village can directly affect. We need to make our opinions known to the powers that be in the town. And I would encourage every citizen of the village who feels this way about it to direct their letters and emails to the officials in the town of Southampton to make their opinions heard. I would also like to tell everybody how much I look forward to Veterans Day tomorrow, and give a special shout out to Kathy Sweeney, our village clerk, who is an Air Force veteran. So hats off to Kathy thank you for your service. And last but not least, my fellow trustees have noticed that I've got a new thing growing on my face. Maybe at home you can see that as well. It's part of a movement called Movember, where you don't shave for a while and engage in a challenge to raise money for a great cause of prostate cancer. My only regret is that it shows my seniority because it's quite white, but that's a disease that affects people who are senior like me. So I thank all of those who are supporting my efforts. I'm riding my bike. For every mile I ride it, people are donating some funds. And so thank to those who are supporting me. And I also encourage anybody else who's doing this and their friends and loved ones. It's a great cause. And anyway, this is just a temporary thing. Don't get too used to it. So thank you all.
Thank you, Trustee Stevenson. Well said. I too will also say that I'm very excited about tomorrow. It's a very special day, Veterans Day, and also wanted to thank our village clerk, Kathy Sweeney. She works behind the scenes to make sure everything in the village runs smoothly. So our village residents owe Kathy a debt of gratitude, not just for her work as village clerk, which she does a great job at, but also her service to the United States Air Force. So thank you again, Kathy Sweeney. Tomorrow, I'll be saying a few words publicly, and of course, we'll be thanking the Veterans Commission. But I wanted to just briefly mention what I'll be saying tomorrow, which is that the more you spend time with veterans, you know, we can't say how important they are to our country. And one thing that is disappointing to me is the more you realize that our government does not do enough to support our veterans. And our goal locally is to try to do everything we can to support our veterans. But of course, we'd like to see more from our statewide and federal governments who obviously send our veterans in to serve our country, but sometimes don't do enough to take care of them once they come back home. And I wish there was a way where we can encourage our state and federal governments to do more. And that's something that I hope to explore further, just because of how valuable and how much we appreciate our veterans for their service. It's one of the most important days for me out of the year when we celebrate our veterans tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to another successful Veterans Day. The second update I have is that I had a great meeting today with the town board regarding the town water quality grants. This past session, there was about $10 million of grant money available for Southampton Town. I thought we did a great job working with our grant writer, Jen Messiano, applying for some of those grants. We've got word that we'll be receiving approximately $5.5 million from the Southampton Town WQIP for water quality money. That's the most by far and away we've ever received. Some of that money will be going for bioswales on West Main Street. That's the parking lot, obviously, behind Village Hall. A permanent reactive barrier, Phase 4, for Lake Agawam, which prevents polluted groundwater from getting to the lake. Potentially, if we would like to move forward, another bioswale, which prevents stormwater runoff from getting to Wickapog Pond. Phillips Pond. And then we also met specifically about a algae skimmer. I've been working on this project for 3 years now, starting with the pilot program with the DEC in the state of New York. This will be the first time in the United States, if we can get funding for this, where we'll be scaling up to treating the lake with 2 to 3 million gallons per day. So what we'll be doing is we'll be harvesting the algae out of the lake and then treating it on site and putting clean water back into the lake. We're working with permits for DEC. All projects of this type that have been done have been pilot and experimental. We actually hope to have the first non-experimental, actual, 3 million gallon harvester done likely in the United States. There's one in Florida that's 1 million gallons per day. You've got, I've heard the mayor of Cincinnati and the governor of Ohio are exploring this for some of the Great Lakes, but we are ahead of the curve here. So we hope to bring in this money from Southampton Town. We've also got some requests from the federal government, and if all can come together, this dream could become a reality. So I'm very excited about it, but knock on wood, there's still some more work to be done, but we've been making progress every day on this. Also, we'll be in December, we'll be having a public hearing regarding a vacancy registry. This is something that I've proposed to the board. I was hoping, and it's not it was a difficult vacancy tax, and I know there'll be a variety of opinions, but on the local level, we have a good take on what's going on here. And when I talk to business owners and landlords around Southampton Village and the downtown, you realize that when one store leaves, no one is having a hard time finding a replacement tenant. In fact, there's a very large space on Main Street where the current store is leaving, and before the store could even leave, and that was their choice to leave, to move to a different location, there is a new tenant moving in. There is another store, a very large store on Main Street, right in the center. One store left, another store is quickly moving in. So it seems to me that if you have a vacant storefront in the village, hearing what I'm hearing from business owners and landlords, people want to be here and they're willing to pay top dollar. So if you have a vacant storefront, something is wrong. It means the landlord simply does not want to transact, or they want double, triple, or quadruple what the market rate is. And we don't want any, obviously, vacant storefronts in the downtown. The ability to tax is driven by the New York State legislature, and that's not something that we can do. So as a substitute, we are proposing a vacancy registry. That would require anyone with a vacant storefront to come to the building department, fill out a form, and tell us that there's a vacant storefront. Everyone will be able to see that there's a vacant storefront. And the only way we can actually have a citation is if those don't participate in that registry. But what I expect to see is that the same landlords that don't want to do business, that don't want to transact, probably also won't participate in the vacancy registry. So we'll see how it goes. Again, it's just one of the clubs we have in the bag, as they say here in the village, but something that we're going to hopefully be able to try out. I hope the board would be willing to support that. I believe we will. And then lastly, as it relates to traffic, I also took the time to speak to some of the residents who don't live in the village. A lot of the residents who live in the village, from what I was told, really like the pilot program. They, as one member of the public said, it's peace and quiet by not having cars on the street. But more importantly, we also, or equally as important, we want to make sure that people who come and work in the village can actually get in and out. And County Road 39 is the main artery. But what I'm hearing from employees who work in the village that don't live in the village, but may live in Hampton Bays or Manorville or Western Suffolk County, they actually have said that they felt that the traffic flow improved during the pilot program that we had. That's the no right turn, the no left turns, the flashing yellow lights, and they enjoyed it. I actually got a call from somebody complaining to me saying the pilot program was so bad, this was just a few days ago, and that they hated the traffic and it was because of the pilot program, and I had to remind them the pilot program is off. And so people are always going to complain about traffic, but from what I heard, we were getting mixed reviews, but now that the pilot program is off, now I'm actually having people ask me and ask this board to bring it back on because of how they felt it was faster. This is going to be an issue that's going to come up in the spring, of course, because when landscaping and gardening season starts, if you think traffic is bad now, in April and May, it's going to be at an all-time high. And so we'll have to continue to go back to the drawing board. By that time, we'll have more results. So I appreciate everyone allowing me to kind of illustrate some of those issues. And with that said, I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel, legal, and contractual matters. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? The time is 9:46 p.m. The date is Thursday, November 10th. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn from executive session, enter the public session, while letting the record know that no action was taken. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd now like to, at 9:47 p.m., make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much and have a good night.